All right, what is going on, guys? It is time for another episode of the Chasing Waypoints podcast. Episode number 122. Man, we have arrived. 122 episodes. Actually, I was looking at the count. With this one, it's actually going to be 126 total episodes. I feel bad. I got a lot of stuff to catch up on, a lot of guys to catch up with. You know, Wolfie, haven't had a chance to talk to him. Luke, same thing. Off-Piste Adventures. I mean, just so much going on. But we're talking a little bit about that today. I turn down the volume here in my headphones because, oh man, I'm going deaf. All right. What are we talking about today? It is countdown to the Sonora Rally 2023, round number 3 of the World Rally Raid Championship. This time, I'm going to go with a little bit of Mexico action. So very, very, very excited to see that. Just 2 weeks away. It's going to be some long weeks of prep. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So it's interesting. A lot of the teams getting ready, people coming over, starting to get, you know, there's probably things on boats already from a while back ago, still trying to work their way to the port. Stuff going to be on airplanes soon and all sorts of fun stuff. So let's talk a little bit about that. We are working on the Sonora Rally prep today, but this is from the admin side, or the rally. I'm going to go with the Rallycom side of it. So we got a lot going on. So this episode, we'll talk a little bit about the back end of Rally. I was thinking about, like, what should we talk about today? You know, my time has been so crunched. I haven't had a chance to reach out, sit down, do interviews, stuff like that. So trying to work on that. Shout out to Lizzie. She is helping me with some of the interview stuff and lining people up. I greatly appreciate that. I don't know. Maybe I may have a guest co-host. I mean, we've got Gnarly Dave as a guest co-host. He's already done in the NAR talks or out in the wild with Gnarly Dave. We never really figured out what it was going to be. Maybe we'll have to create a poll and see how that one goes. But okay, so here we go. So Sonora Rally a couple of weeks away, and it is time to start getting everything ready. It has been a bit of a crunch, and this one is going to be a very, very big production this year, as it is now a World Rally Raid Championship round number 3. So what does that all entail? I'll just turn the music down, turn the party down. It entails a lot. It's actually very interesting. So organizations, right, fluctuate between, you know, what standards they use to a certain extent. You know, in this one, the big one that is coming, that's kind of new and nobody really uses, is a program called River Notes. They designed their road books on a whole different program, which works well. And the reason I say that is because it's just like, you know, we've talked about previously, like in suspension and things like that. It's like you want to build a relationship. Well, the program that you use to build road books is kind of a relationship. You're going to spend a lot of time in there. You're going to get really quick at making things. You're going to get a lot of stuff to do. And the big part about it is just learning the program in detail so that it just gets faster and faster. So recently, you know, Rally Navigator within the last several months transitioned to a desktop version that wasn't relying as heavily on internet connection, which worked. I mean, is absolutely the best, especially when you're operating in areas where there's limited Wi-Fi, things like that. You know, it would take a long time to load. So happy to see that they have it, you know, as a desktop app. Now with, you know, and just in time for Starlink, now it's not the big a deal as it was before, but still it is very nice, you know, if you need to make an adjustment on the fly. So it's going to be interesting. The big part, you know, there's going to be a lot, you know, that we're doing. So typically when I go to an event, it is a lot of, you know, admin. There's a lot of little details, a lot of little things that need to happen, you know, riders with trackers and making sure trackers are working and, you know, set up properly, that kind of thing. You know, the tech inspection side of it, making sure that the units are installed correctly. I mean, there's a lot of production that goes on to putting an event, and, you know, chaperoning the riders and things like that. And so a lot of this is, you know, I'm just like thinking through my head, like the laundry list of things that need to get done. And it all hinges on stuff that, that comes from the organizations, that the organizations need to work on, which, the road books, the waypoints, the flow of the rally, the exits, all of these little moving pieces. And it just kind of this cascading effect, they have the bigger parts, then the little parts start trickling down and making sure. And, it's one thing, you look at a road book, you see all of the notes, you see all of the waypoints. Well, those waypoints need to be programmed in to the unit and, encrypted and all of that stuff. And so doing that can sometimes be a little bit of a task. Then you have to go back and double check your work and make sure that every waypoint was accounted for or is accounted for in the unit compared to the road book, and making sure that all lines up. Speed zones line up, that everything has just got to be double checked. You cannot wing it. And it is a definite attention to detail. It's literally one of those things that if you even have a doubt that you screwed it up, and I've done this many a time, go back over it. Do not risk it. Do not chance it, because the units are programmed, and the rider experience and the integrity of the results and all of this, everything depends on these things being done correctly, and that's just getting a program onto a chip and getting them into a unit. You go a lot further than now from there, which is then, okay, well, tracking the riders and who's, where is everybody? Where is, what are the resources? What can you use? What are the bailout points? There's a lot that goes into that side of it, and making sure that you have, if there happens to be an issue with the rider, mechanical or otherwise, knowing where they're at, being able to communicate with them effectively. You have to have some forethought in messages that you send and things like that to make sure that you communicate as quickly and effectively as possible. So there's a lot that goes on once the show's on the road. Once people leave the bivouac, it might be kind of calm in the bivouac and people just kind of hanging out, but there's a whole production going on, that's keeping track of all the riders, constantly sweeping, how long has this rider been stopped for? Okay, it's time to send them a message. All right, what's going on? We can verify, or you got an alert, or they sent a message. Now you've got to coordinate all this other stuff. And then, in this particular case, right, we're dropping in that there's a whole organization that's coming from across the pond that operates, on different coordinate format. They have a different format for naming of their unit, of the medical units or org vehicles and things like that. So there's a lot of like quick growing pains. There's going to be a lot of moving pieces in short order. And so it really does turn into, it really is an exercise in being meticulous and also being flexible. That's one of the things, then you have things where roadbook goes out, gets verified, and then there's a change that needs to happen. A fence went up, something happened, a flash flood, and it wiped out this roadbook that, across that 2 weeks ago was fine, but now there's a huge water crossing through there, and now it could be issues. And so there's a lot of little moving pieces that have to happen, and this is every road book, every single day, every single note has to be in a sense accounted for. So not even the waypoints. Now you go back and do the notes. So it gives, there's a lot of respect for the people that create the road books and that go out, and it really is an art form. It really, really is an involved thing when it comes to a professional level event. Now, I'm going to be working on a couple of different things, but namely, it's to continue the journey of getting more people into rally and creating an easy to digest, easy route. Just looking for the easy button for as much of this sport that we can do that will make things effectively, and starting with the equipment, and starting with how to create a route. That's one of the first things, is usually question number 2 is like, okay, well, how do I get started? Okay, well, you need this, this, and this for your road books. Okay, how do I get road books? That is literally the second question a lot of people ask, and I get a lot of emails with that kind of, request. It's like, okay, well, how do I do this? So I have some ideas. And all it takes is time, right? And unfortunately, it doesn't grow on trees, and there's no way to get it back. It's one of the most expensive things you will ever trade, borrow, by whatever. Time is just one of those things. And so trying to get everything put together and then ready. I mean, today, literally, I'm on the microphone bright and early in the morning, trying to get this episode done, or getting this episode done, because I'm like, hey, I got to get consistent. I want to go back to this like 10 a.m. on Sundays, right? You guys are having your morning coffee. I'm having my morning coffee. Speaking of which. So you get into all of these little routines and all of these little things. And if you guys heard the episode of, packing for adventure and getting ready to go out to an adventure, I pack in the same manner, whether it's my car or whether it's the bike or whatever it is like I think through the things that I'm going to need. Okay, I'm going to have a table inside the course control office that I will be able to do tracking. And that's going to be my home. So what does that look like in my head? I have laptop, a spare, an additional monitor, the iPad. Okay, I need, do I need a keyboard? Do I need a mouse? Do I need extra batteries? What cables do I need? Okay, if that cable fails, what's the cable that I can use? What are my backup plans? What are my things? So everything is accounted for and everything is done in a way that it works effectively. Nothing extra. That doesn't need to that doesn't have a very specific purpose. There's, you can say, oh, you can carry all of these spares. Yeah, you can carry all of these spares, but in the end of the day, there are certain things that you're just really not going to need. Or you have things that will serve as dual purpose, right? I had let's just go like the macro look at this. Charging my laptop. Well, charging my laptop was one charger, and then the power cable for this additional monitor was another one. And then now the iPad would probably need another one. I mean, you can run it off the battery for a while, right? And do that. But okay, well, how do I eliminate 3 different chargers? Well, you can go buy, like from Anker, you can get one of these like power bricks that's like 200 watts. This is gnarly little thing, but it has a port for charging a laptop. It has 2 USB ports, so that handles the iPad and it handles the spare monitor. Done. Problem solved. One thing handles all 3. So it's just kind of thinking through things, right? And again, this is like more admin stuff, but if you're on a bike, it's the same thing. Do I carry spare clutch discs or do I carry some leather shoelaces? What are you really trying to achieve? And in case of emergency, right? You don't need a compression tester out in the middle of nowhere, but a spark plug would be handy. You might need different things, maybe a fuel injector. Maybe you may not ever need it, but it's one of those things that's mission critical. If you look at it, and something I'll be curious to try is the the Takamoto fuel pump. The fuel pump that I have right now in the 501. I'm gonna assume it's been in there a while. 300 plus hours, and I think that maybe it's time to put another pump in it. Get another fuel pump set up and just get it. And hey, I know this thing works and I'm going to put it away working, and so I want to make sure that what I have in the bike is solid, because the quickest way to end your day is, a fuel pump that fails, a fuel injector that fails, something along those lines. So it's very critical whether you're riding or whether you're in the back end, and you think through the things that you need. My power setup, it's funny. One of the things that I thought was kind of like common, but I get a lot of questions about how I am generating power at the bivouac, and people see it. They hang out. When I'm out on the bivouac and doing tracking, I'm the guy that a lot of people want to talk to, because they want to know where the riders are at. They want to know who's up front. They want to know all of these things, and and it's cool, but a lot of the things that the people will see is like, well, what's all this? And I use a solar panel. Basically it's a solar generator, right? It's a panel that I attach to a battery pack. That battery pack has the inverter, has all of the stuff that I need, and then it powers the things that I need. And it's calculated and it works. I can power my Starlink, I can power the fridge, and I need power for my laptop and a couple of devices. Not a whole lot of room to spare, but it handles everything that I need. And depending on the event, I have a spare battery that I can hook up, because sometimes you're going to go far beyond sunset, and then it becomes, it's like, okay, well, how much power do I have to go into the night? Well, yeah, I could get a generator, but now I got to bring gas, and now I got to bring a gas can. Well, how do you account for all of that? And yeah, that would probably be the better thing. But or in a sense more reliable. But honestly, I can do what I need with this setup, and it's kind of like almost like, hey, I only got 2 hours of battery left, so we're either moving or we're getting this done. So let's roll. Can't waste time. So all of these things work in a way that, work in conjunction with each other, and everything is, like I said, is accounted for. And I think that's the biggest part of it. And so now, now begins that process, right? So today, it's cleaning the garage, but now it's getting all of these things set up and, practice packing the car. I was talking to my dad yesterday, and it's like, just like how I did for Sonora Rally School, is mock everything up, get everything in there. Okay, the platform's done, everything that I need. Okay, where's the table? Where's the chairs? Where's everything? Okay, let's put everything. This is everything that's going. Let's get it in the car now. Make sure that it's set. And then, okay, pull it all out. All right, I know where everything goes. I already played Tetris. And yeah, and I mean, it shows, when it came time to load the car, I was literally done in 10 minutes. And when it came time to unload the car, when we got back from Sonora Rally School, it was literally 10 minutes. So everything is, like I said, everything is accounted for and works out in a way that, hey, all, this is Victor with the Chasing Waypoints podcast. Super quick. I've been using the countershocks now for about 6 months on my bikes, and it is an absolute go-to. Super quick and easy to install. 4 bolts, and it is on the bike and ready to go. It has helped reduce the vibrations on the handlebars, the fatigue in my hands, and all of those hard hits is just making the bike track a lot better. So I absolutely love that thing. Check it out. Link is in the description, countershocks.com. How do you, it's like, how do you think? It's like, it's crazy because sometimes I feel like, in talking to people and doing that stuff, that they operate differently, and things get forgotten. And not that I'm guilty of forgetting things and doing all that stuff, but at the same time, it's kind of like, well, wait, how do people go about sometimes packing things, preparing for an adventure, seeing through, planning this stuff? And I mean, it's kind of like a life thing, right? You think like, okay, well, you got to have a game plan. You got to have some sort of a plan. You got to have some sort of a picture out on the horizon that you're shooting for. And now it's like, okay, well, how do I execute and get there? And I mean, and this is no different, on the from the admin side of it, and I don't know, it's kind of an interesting thing, right? Trying to get everything ready and just make sure that when you get down there, you're not like, damn it, I really need this and I really don't have this, and this is not good, because then you're scrambling, then you're trying to figure this stuff out, and it just does not work. And so I don't know. I'm up for the challenge. I want to even go out, I would love to go ride today, and just, it's Easter Sunday, spend some time out in the wild, and then spend some time with family and just chill, but I think about all of these things that are going on. There's meetings that are coming up, that are during the week, and, dealing with two very different time zones. So it's like I'm at work and I got to try and figure out how to get onto these calls and do these kind of things. And so it really does generate a lot of work. It's a very, very big production. And I mean, and somebody prepping for a rally, right? I'm curious, to know, like, okay, well, for somebody else, if it's somebody like Mason or somebody like Skylar Howes or Ricky Brayback, any of the guys running this rally, including, in the national class or rally to anybody, it's like, okay, where are we going? Like, what's the preparation like? What does it take? What are the different stories, right? What are the two different sides of this that is involved with going to a rally raid? Because it's very different. In my mind, I'm getting a bike ready. It was like I was getting ready for SoCal Rally several weeks back, and it's like, okay, start at the front of the bike, go to the back of the bike. Is everything in the best possible shape that it can be in? Is everything properly tightened? Is everything properly adjusted? Is everything where it needs to be? Because I don't want problems. And it's usually the one thing that you forget. Like, hey, I took apart the clamps, I did all of this stuff, but I didn't go back and I didn't check the torque on the bearings. And so now I'm at the end of day one, I'm feeling a little bit of a clicking, and I'm like, I know this feeling. I've ridden a bike before that's got loose steering head bearings, and I can tell that this thing has that. And sure enough, at the end of day one, I go put it up in the rack, and then I start pulling on the forks, and there it is. I got this gnarly click coming out of it, and I'm like, what happened? Well, that was me taking it apart, greasing the bearings, doing all of this stuff, but then not taking the time to go back and revisit the work after the first ride. And so I paid for that, and I, now it's, you're more conscious of it. So there's detail. It's just all about the details in the sport. And, for the people that are new and that are listening to this, this is a several years down the road kind of thing. So if you're looking to get into the rally sport and into this whole thing, you got to take it, a little bite at a time and a little thing. And the big part about it is that, I'll go to something that was actually kind of interesting. This was I don't know, a few years. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have a TikTok account and I watch TikTok videos, and I got a few in there, and it's just me basically bullshitting, and it's nothing, nothing crazy, right? But what you get out of it is the algorithm, right? That algorithm and watching and what you see. The majority of my feed on TikTok is literally like business ideas. It's photo creative stuff. It's, video creative stuff, that kind of thing that I see. But I also, in the business ideas and stuff like that, I get other, other information, other ideas that it's like kind of like motivating. And I think that that's a very big deal. It's like, if you are trying to create something, you need to have an idea of like, okay, what is the minimum viable product? This is crazy. I didn't, this episode is kind of a different thing, because I've just got so much organization stuff. So by me talking about it, it kind of like, I'm weeding through everything with you guys. And it's like the minimum viable product, right? So minimum viable product is basically saying, okay, what is the very basic thing that I can do to get it out into the field and get out into the world, and get out. And so a road book, what is the minimum viable product of a road book? Well, if you really, really, really just chop it down, it's, I'm going to make a video on it, because I'm going to go out and do one here just to show some basics of how to make a road book and how I would best approach it. Okay. Go out and write it, go out and mark some waypoints, mark them on the calendar, drop a pin, for special features and stuff like that. Come back, put it in Rally Navigator, and then just put turns. Don't worry about decorating the thing and putting all of this stuff, or if you want to, to kind of make it cool. Yeah. But you could literally write a road book. A very basic road book can be done literally with just the first two boxes. You don't need to put anything in the third box. You could, if you want, put some notes and stuff like that, but you don't, the minimum viable product for a road book is literally just the kilometers and then the arrows in the center, and just kind of depicting, oh, that's a left turn or that's a right turn, or there's very, very basic things that you can get away with that is a road book. I mean, a lot of the stuff was handwritten in the beginning. Make a left at this third bush or whatever, it's just like one of these things that it just is kind of evolved. And what we see now in a road book, like, of course, you look at a Dakar road book and, as people progress, things get more complicated. And so the road books of the past were very, very easy. And so then people were able to start navigating faster and faster and faster. And then you brought in the map men, and then you brought in things, that would, hand somebody a road book, and you got an idea of where the liaison starts, and they would literally draw you a line, and then they would come back with, okay, at this note, just go straight for 20 kilometers, and then you'll be back on course again, and you won't miss a waypoint. Or you missed a waypoint, but, instead of traveling an hour out of the way, you're only going to pick up a 20-minute penalty. Or whatever, I don't know that they would play with fire on missing waypoints and stuff like that. But I know that in Score with the VCPs, I know there's people that do that they weigh that option. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to get a 10-minute penalty if I don't go see this waypoint, or I don't go meet this waypoint. But I know I can make up 15 minutes, so I'm going to net 5 minutes by taking this shortcut. Things like that, right? And that's kind of like, well, it kind of ruins it. And that's the thing with Rally is that. And why the rules and why things have progressed and changed is because, hey, these guys are getting really good at doing this. So, okay, well, how do we start beating that? Well, fast forward, you get your road book 15 minutes before you leave. And there's no markings and there's no other thing, because then they were finding out that people were like, okay, kind of drawing the lines. And it is possible. You you think that it's not a thing, but you could sit there and look and visualize the road book, and then you start picking up on little things like, wait, it looks like we're going to go out and then back, and I don't see any waypoints, but then we have this main road. I bet you this main road continues. So if I don't do that section, I'm going to save some time there. It's no different than when you see that a left turn is coming up, and then you can kind of see where the other rider's at. You just kind of cutting the course, cutting way to the inside. That was 30 seconds that you maybe saved, or a minute. I don't know. It just depends how much of that how much of a bite off that corner you took. It just really depends. So that goes into the more advanced stuff. And so now you see, some of the road books coming out of the Dakar and some of these other organizations, and it's like super complicated that they put like 3 notes into one, and different directions. It's like, okay, well, at 137.2, you're going to make a turn. You're going to be on this cap heading, and then after 500 meters, switch to this cap heading, and then it's got, some other kind of indicator in there. And so they're really focusing on trying to make the notes and a little more complicated, and then slow the riders down a little bit, which, I get, things like, putting on a 160 kilometer per hour speed limit across the entire event. There's a lot of things that come up that I will say that we've progressed, and rally riders are obviously getting faster. The technology has improved. There's so many things that have gone to it. But if you want to go down that rabbit hole, you can absolutely do it. But if you're just getting into this, think about, my recommendation is think about the minimum viable product. Keep that term in your head. And I love that term, because it's like, okay, in rally, you guys are going to see this coming up. I worked with Matthew Glade at Rally Moto Shop. He was able to get me a couple of mounting plates for my rally setup. And I am really, really focused on a rally light setup, and coming up with something that is super easy to install on the bike and take off of the bike. That's minimally invasive. That's not, because that's the thing is like, there's a lot of people, I've talked to a few people, there's a lot of people that, like, I want to get into rally riding, and then they start seeing towers, and you get decision paralysis, right? Moto-Minded makes a badass, rally tower. And then you've got, Raid Garage. I have both. I have the Raid Garage tower on the 790. I've got the Moto-Minded tower waiting to be installed on the 501 after I'm done with this rally light stuff. And so it's like, okay, what are the things that need to be done so that you can get out into the sport? And okay, what's the basic equipment? Do you really need an electronic roadbook reader or a motorized roadbook reader? If you're just getting into the sport, or could you just, go with a kind of a mid-level manual roadbook holder and just make it happen, right? If you're just going to go ride recreationally, do I need an ICO and a cap? Do I need 2 ICOs? Do I need 2 of the RNS electronic units, the GFXs? Do I need 2 of those? Do I really just need 1? What are the things, what are just the basic, what's the minimum viable product to get into the sport? And just like anybody, if you have shiny object syndrome, this episode, this whole part of the conversation is just, you and I are on the same page. If you're into the shiny object syndrome, I'm guilty. I see something, I'm like, ooh, I can justify why I need it, and why it's not really a want. But these are the situations that I make up in my head that say, okay, yeah, that's why I need this. That's not, I don't want it, I need it, And so it becomes one of those things like, okay, well, you got to throttle it back. You got to say, okay, if I want to get into this, I don't want to spend a lot of money, because what if I don't like it? And spoiler alert is you just get hooked. I went out and I rode the SoCal Rally. It was my second and third road books out there. And, aside from realizing that I needed to work on my form and my riding, my riding pace and making the bike just a little bit more comfortable, which I was talking to my dad about this. This is like, I really enjoy the idea, the practice of taking a bike, putting it on the stand, and then just starting from the front axle and going all the way back, and just working on things and making sure, okay, is this the best that it could be? Am I missing something? Does it need something? What are the things? Is it properly tightened? Is it properly adjusted? Is there no binding? Is there this? How are the wires ran? Okay, what connections are we using? I don't use crimp connectors. I solder everything. I put shrink tube. I make sure the connections are dialed. All of these little things, I enjoy that process of it. So, and it's the same, if you're looking at getting into rally, it's like, okay, well, you can start all the way at the top and just like, go, now that the Cove rally bikes are going to start becoming available here in the US, you could literally go put a deposit down on a brand new bike, a brand new rally bike. You could get the pro one that's got all the rally stuff ready to go, and then go run and race that around. Or you can start, with the bike that you have in the garage. And that's, could I have looked for a, FE350 and gone to, gone that route? Go get an FE350, brand new bike, and then come home, set it up, and start doing it? Yeah, but, the amount of money that goes into that, into that bike and sending that up, well, that's really not the thing. A lot of us have used bikes laying around or bikes that we've been riding for a while that you could literally turn into a rally bike without a whole lot of work, And then the thing is that like in talking to one of the guys at work is, do you really want to convert that bike all the way over? It's like, a lot of guys race Heron Hounds and stuff like that. Well, the Heron Hounds, they know they're coming around, so they only need so much gas. So they only need a certain size tank, just barely bigger than stock. But for somebody that's racing rally, you're thinking like, well, man, I got to make, 200 miles. So I got to have, the 5.6 gallon tank, I might even carry a mouthful of gas if I need to, and so there's different mentalities. There's different things because the bikes are designed for different purposes. They're built for different purposes. But if you can do with what you have already and get out into it, and this is like, there's going to be a spoiler episode. There's going to be an episode coming that has all of this stuff laid out because I'm really, really dead set on this. I'm working on a couple of different projects that are moving slowly, towards the finish line. And the idea is exactly that. It's like, hey, minimum viable product, right? Minimum investment, minimum, not as, minimum intrusion into the current bike that you already have, that's already dialed, that you've already done all of this stuff, just basics, right? Yeah, is it going to be like 100% dialed for racing and it's going to be no, but why are you going to set up a race bike and turn it into a rally race bike if you're not even sure if you're going to like the sport? And I mean, and I'll tell you right now, if you try it, and that's what I was kind of alluding to earlier, is like once you try it and once you get it, you just get even more hooked with it, and I think that really makes a difference. And it is very competitive, but it is also a chess game. It's not about going as fast as you can, as long as you can, and just sending it, and your strategy involves, what sections, where you're going to pass, your fuel strategy, it doesn't involve that, it's a bit different. You have a lot of notes, you have mistakes that can happen and all that. And it really levels out the playing field. So I think that it definitely is the future sport, right? And we've talked about this. We already know all about this. There's plenty of episodes that we've done on this. There's plenty of information out there how rally is the future, and I believe it is. And the more people that try it, and especially if we get a good recipe, solid recipe going for getting people into the sport and getting into this whole thing, it is going to be that much better. I think that much more interest is going to come to it. And yeah, maybe we'll put our own spin on it. I got some ideas, maybe we'll do it our own way. And it's not going to be full on professional FIM, kind of deal. But you know what? At the end of the day, there's people behind road books and they're out having fun, and they're out having fun with their buddies, and it's like at SoCal Rally. It's not a race, it's just a thing. A bunch of guys that like rally, they're all out there. And, there's, okay, we'll go. I'm leaving here in 20 minutes. You go now and I'll leave in 20, or I'll leave in 10, space it out, so people can ride their own road book and they're not, playing follow the leader. Or some people, want to ride in a group. That's total. I've seen everything. I've seen all of that, happen at Baja Rally. Shit, I've had guys that, I stopped to take pictures, I stopped for a couple of smoke breaks, it's very different, and everybody does rally for different things. You know, the challenge of navigating as quickly as possible and being the fastest rider on the road, you know, hey, there's people that want to do that. You know what? There's people that want to go take the tour. You know, they want to go take the ride, you know, go out, get lost, follow this thing. I mean, there's a very big sense of accomplishment that comes every single note, because when you get to the next note and you're on point, then that means that the last decisions that you made, the last decision at the last note that you made was correct. And you get that validation and you get that little hit of, you know, gratification. And all right, cool. You know, I got it, you know, and then the road book I'm staring at in front of me has got 227 of those. So is it hard? You know what? You're going to get lost at some point. But if you're riding with people, you know, you can go back and stretch it out, or you can go look forward in the road book. There's a lot of different strategies to it, you know, that you pick up as you move, you know, as you go along. You know, I learned at SoCal Rally, you know, Gnarly Dave, I learned a very important lesson on looking forward in the road book. You know, I'm busy going backwards trying to retrace my steps. And then he says, well, you know, you realize if you look forward, you're going to see that hill that's in front of us is in the road book, right? You know, and then you see that when you get to the top of it, you know, ride to the top of it. And then, you know, oh, okay, well, here's this trail. And, oh, this makes sense. So all I had to do was scroll up a couple notes and I would have seen it, right? 3 notes that you can see. If I literally would have moved it up at least 1 note, I would have seen that there was an arrow for an uphill. Instead, I wasted 5-10 minutes going back. So I learned an important lesson by looking forward. And then later on, the very next day, I put it into practice and was able to cut out a few kilometers or a kilometer out of the route because I looked forward. So it's one of those things that you just kind of like, you develop your recipe talking to Mason, right? And like, I would get so excited that I nailed a note that I would just ride, you know, all right, cool. I made the turn, you know, off we go. And then I'm riding along and then I'm going, wait, I don't even know where I'm going next. And I then just like slow down and look at the note. And then I'm talking to Mason about it. He goes, yeah, you have to do it while you're riding slow, right? So you got the note, cool. Before you speed up, look at the next note, make sure you know where you're going, and then go. Meanwhile, you know, I'm trying to do my best impression of, you know, Skylar Hauser, Johnny Camel, you know, slide the bike a little, you know, put a little bit of flair, you know, sprinkle a little bit of flair in there. Never mind. I'm just kidding. I don't have that kind of talent. But, you know, I'm so focused and just got that hit, you know, of like, yeah, I did it. You know, this is the note. I've arrived. Cool. We're on it. Awesome. You know, and then again, some of the stuff that they had us riding, it's like just these huge landscapes. And I mean, there was a section there and you just want to pin it. You just want to see how fast this thing will go, you know, and it just absolutely beautiful. And it's one of those things like you get sucked into it and you just don't realize that, you know, oh, wait, I don't even know where I'm supposed to be heading next. And then, you know, and then there is the times that you do. And I did it. And this is where I learned, you know, it's interesting, right? I've been doing, and if you guys heard the last episode, right, there were certain things that I've picked up from doing different classes, watching different videos, things like that. And it was the time that I realized, like, okay, without trying, my body is already starting to do this. And that was when I'm on the straightaway, long straightaway, wide open. I mean, we're just going as fast as the bike will go. Comfortable. I'm not pinned, but you know, we're up there. And hey, what's going on, guys? This is Victor with the Chasing Waypoints podcast. Hey, super quick break in the episode. Want to talk about really quick about Spotify for podcasters. If you are interested in getting your story out to the world, starting your own podcast, it is super, super simple. Head on over to spotify.com/podcasters and get all of the information. It is a one-stop shop. You can edit, you can do Q&A, you can do video podcasts, all sorts of different things in one platform. They handle all of the distribution for you, so it is super, super simple and effective. So with that being said, guys, let's get back to the episode. As I look down to verify, because I know I've got a turn coming up that's supposed to be coming up, as I look down, I just catch that the odometer turned right at that note. And I mean, I just like out of the corner of my eye, I just saw the trail blow by. I'm like, oh, missed it. You know, you get sucked into the scenery and then just that moment, and then you forget that you were going to have to navigate it in a second. And so I get, you know, I'm up on the pegs, you know, flat back, you know, trying to be quote unquote aerodynamic. look good for the camera that isn't there, and jump up and then nail the brakes and then slide the bike, right? Just kind of slide and skid to a stop as fast as I can, right? Grabbing the front brake, doing everything, And I realize that now it's like, this is something that I learned on the adventure bike when I went and did the off-road smart school several months back with Jose Carrasco down in Rosarito. It's like, look, and, he would have me, one of the drills was, okay, come up to this line, hit the brakes as hard as you can, stop the bike as fast as you can, and no ABS, and the bike would be sideways. And it was like, okay, if it's sideways, this is what he told us, is usually as your foot positioning is off. And you're leaning a little, you're putting a little more pressure on a certain peg, and that's what's causing the bike to skid in that direction. And I got on the binders and this thing was like straight as an arrow. I didn't think that could happen. And I realized now that I'm like, holy hell, without thinking, it just happened. So that's something that speaks to having, the training and going and it's kind of the craft of it, right? Riding a dirt bike, I think, is dangerous. And sometimes I think is like, okay, well, what if I went and got a UTV, or what if I went and got a quad? I would love to see quads start in on this. And I just lost half the listeners that are interested in motorcycles only. But the main thing is that it's about rally and getting people into rally. And so I've thought about that. I'm like, okay, well, what about just building one up, right? Just go grab one with a desert tank and do all that, put some nav equipment on some handlebars, and then just go have fun, If you've never slid a quad around, power slid a quad, into a corner, just full send. Yeah, that is a lot of fun. Not going to lie. I can't do it on a dirt bike. I'd high side and I'd still be in orbit. But at the end of the day, it's just about going out and having fun. And so I'm not going to knock anybody for riding a quad or being in a UTV or in a golf cart. I will say, though, in the golf carts, there's lessons to be learned. And if you're into the UTVs and all that stuff, and I'm telling you now that take time and practice controlling the car, practice car control. So much I cannot stress it enough. And I can tell you right now, if you're riding around in a stock roll cage, you're asking for trouble. So that's my UTV speech. Practice car control. Make sure you got a decent roll cage on the thing, because things will come at you by surprise, and it's not going to be a good thing. Window nets, 5-point seat belt, and a real roll cage. The stock roll cages are meant for those slow tip overs. They are not meant for rollovers at speed. They're supposed to be quote unquote crash tested. I have yet to see a video or aftermath photos where I say, oh yeah, that okay, that cage was good. It's not. So I guess we could wrap that into the details, right? Start at everything. Start at the front wheels, go to the back wheels, and everything in between. I don't know. There's a lot that can be done. But at the end of the day, the big thing is that if you're thinking about getting into rally and you're thinking about getting into this, I'll tell you now, there's a lot of moving pieces. It is a rabbit hole that you could go down and never find the end of. But at the end of that is a lot of adventure and experience. And there's just so much that you gain out of this sport, which is absolutely awesome, that the focus has got to be on the beginning of it. And what's that term? I'll give you guys a second. Okay, yes, minimum viable product. So that's what we got to be thinking. So if you're looking into rally, guys, reach out. There's a ton of great people. Rally Riders in North America, Facebook group. There's a lot of stuff that you can do to get into the sport, and a lot of people that are willing to help, with information and help point you in the right direction. But the big thing you got to be thinking, if you're looking at getting into this, is like, okay, what's the minimum stuff that I need to get into this sport? And just do it. And there's a lot. And then just start getting fancy from there. Because 9 out of 10 times where you start, you can just build upon. It's not like you have to scrap the whole project. So with that being said, guys, I got to get in the garage. It is time. We got some cleaning to do. I got a quick road book that I want to make, some videos that I got to do. I'd love to go out and ride and enjoy. It's finally 70 degrees outside, which is awesome for riding. So I'm looking forward to all of this. So anyway, with that being said, remember, it'll make sense when you get there. Enjoy the ride. All right, that is a wrap for the Chasing Waypoints podcast this week. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like what you heard. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and a bunch of others. Also, follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook under Chasing Waypoints, Instagram Chasing Waypoints _official, and of course, the YouTube under Chasing Waypoints. Hope everybody has a good week. We will see you guys for the next episode. Remember, shiny side up, and don't forget to tag us. We want to see where you guys are riding and what you guys are up to. Have a great week.